Welcome to the Wisconsin Music Podcast.
Welcome to the Wisconsin Music Podcast. In this episode of the Wisconsin Music Podcast, I sit down with Milwaukee's own Jim Eanneli, a seasoned producer and multi-instrumentalist known for his legendary contributions to bands like Color Radio, The Shivers, and his work with former Bodine Sam Giannis. After decades of being the go-to supporting player in Milwaukee's music scene, Jim is stepping into the spotlight with his first solo album, Just Desserts, set to release on September 27th of this year, 2024. Just Desserts showcases a collection of original songs that reflect Eanneli's vast musical experiences and his ability to span genres, from the ferocious rockabilly rhythm of 29 Women to the heartbreak ballad Where I've Been. The album captures the depth of his songwriting and production skills. With influences ranging from punk to Americana, this album is a culmination of years spent honing his craft in different bands. Tune in to hear more about the making of this highly anticipated debut and Jim's journey through the ever-evolving music landscape. New episodes drop every Tuesday, and past episodes air on Fox Cities Indie Radio on Thursdays at 6 p.m. and Sundays at 3 p.m. Don't miss Jim Eanneli's Just Desserts, available digitally and physically starting September 27th through Happy Growl Records, with CDs available at local record shops and eBay. Visit facebook.com/Jim Eanneli, that's JimEannelli, for more updates. So Jim, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. Happy to be alive, I guess.
Yes, aren't we all? Aren't we all? So you have this great album coming out, but before we get right into that, why don't you give the listeners a little bit of your background? How did music get started, and kind of give us a brief synopsis that led you to getting this solo album out?
Well, it's a big question, but I guess I have to start with my two older brothers were really good drummers. And so because we already had two drum sets in the basement, I couldn't play drums, so I had to play something else. So I started playing bass and guitar when I was 11 and a half. And my earliest memory was standing in the basement with my first amp and my first guitar that my mom bought me, and standing between my two brothers who were both playing really loud drum sets on either side of me and trying to play along with them. So it was kind of it would have been a really cool band in this day and age, right? One guy with the guitar and then two drummers.
Right.
And they'd be all brothers. So I look back at that and I think that would have been such a cool band.
Yeah, I mean, because the bands that I can think of off the top of my head that had two drummers would be like the Allman Brothers and the Doobie Brothers, both brother-based bands.
I saw the Allman Brothers with the two drummers. Man, that was awesome.
I bet. It would have been the Eanneli brothers with, like you said, two drummers and a guitar player. So you did that. So you kind of, and then what happened after that? What progressed after that?
Oh, well, I started to play with guys from the neighborhood that were, more singer-songwriter guys that were a little bit better than me. And because they were better guitarists than me, the only way I could fit in was to play bass.
Okay.
And I didn't even own a bass. So I had to borrow one from this one guy named Frank Bauer. And he had a 62 Fender Precision bass in Lake Placid Blue. And I borrowed that for a while and played, in bands with the better guitar players. I find out that bass now, he wanted to sell it to me for $150. It's worth $40,000 now.
Man, that's ridiculous.
I didn't have enough money. I was making like $80 a week on my paper route, so I didn't have enough money.
Yeah. The days of delivering papers when you're a young teenager, I don't think that happens anymore nowadays.
I don't think it does either. It's all digital.
Right? I mean, I think my generation was the last generation, because I did a paper route early in the morning from like 13 till 16 when I was old enough to work somewhere else. So, but I digress. So you started playing bass, and but obviously you're a guitar player now. So how did you go from bass to going back to guitar?
Well, I started on guitar, and then I played bass just to fit in because everybody around me was such great guitar players. And I look back at that and I think, dang, the reason that I learned so much guitar, and by no means I'm the best guitar player, about anything, but what I learned was a little bit from everybody I played with. And a lot of guys would say, who are your guitar heroes, man? Like, you're Clapton or Hendrix. I'm like, no, it was the guys that I stood next to and heard, like, live,
Yeah.
And those were my heroes. And I learned so much from so many different people. And I played with a lot of people. The list goes on. And, some of the greats, like Pat Donahue, he plays guitar on the Prairie Home Companion with Garrison Keillor. He won the Winfield finger picking contest 3 years in a row back in the day. He's a monster guitar player known all over the world. He played with Chet Atkins. I've had Daryl Sturmer over here in my basement studio hanging out, jamming with him. He's Phil Collins, Genesis. So
Right.
These are my friends, and so I picked up a little bit from each one. I don't do exactly what they do, but just the feeling of somebody in your presence will be enough to inspire you to go in a different direction,
Absolutely. I mean, we're a culmination of all our experiences, and your experiences in music is watching all these other guitar players and learning, like you said, learning from them. And that's what a musician's all about, is just basically, quote unquote, stealing their ideas and then making them your own in your own way.
We like to refer to it as borrowing, Zach.
Yes. Borrowing. Yes. Let me borrow that. Not that I'm really going to give it back to you, but I'm going to borrow that for the rest of my life and maybe use that.
I had a friend of mine tell me a long time ago, he said, Jim, because I was just kind of like, what should I do with my life? And, what band should I play with? I don't know what I want to do. He said, look, just if you really want to be a musician, go out and play with anybody and everybody you can. Any kind of band, just do it. You're going to learn something. And
Yes.
so, like a week later, I couldn't feed myself, so I got a job with a polka band making like $100 a night. I'm like, $100 a night? That was like the moon for me. And I learned how to play polka. And what I learned was in polka, it's a lot of the same grooves as rockabilly.
I can see that.
It's the same groove as country. And I was listening to some French parade music one time from New Orleans. And polka and rockabilly and French parade music, the bass lines are like these old tuba lines, and they're all the same. So I was putting this all together, and it was really like a big eye-opener for me. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's, it's amazing how, people think these different, genres are different, but if you really break this stuff down and really analyze it a little bit, you're like, well, that's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and it's just... It just has maybe a slightly different feel to it, but it's all basically the same 12 notes, and there's only so many rhythms and chord changes out there.
That's right. And I think it was King Solomon in the Bible that said, there's nothing new under the sun.
Right. Everything's been done before, just everybody has a new spin on it, or you forget about it because it's, decades or centuries old, and we just bring it back around and just change it slightly and make it more up to date, I guess.
That's right. I heard a great producer in Hollywood say once in front of a bunch of people, and this is an old cliche. He said, "Same can of beans, different label."
Yep. Totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Hey, Wisconsin Music Podcast listeners. Are you looking to elevate your music with a personal touch? Let me introduce you to ZTF Studio, where your sound finds its true home. At ZTF Studio, we create more than just great recordings. We create an experience. Our cozy, home-based studio in southeast Wisconsin is designed to make you feel comfortable and inspired. Imagine walking into a space where your music is treated with the same care and passion you put into it. But with over 20 years of experience, we know how to bring out the best in your sound. Whether you're a solo artist or a full band, you'll get personalized attention and expert guidance every step of the way. We blend technical expertise with a warm, welcoming vibe to make your recording sessions enjoyable and productive. So, come on in, grab a cup of coffee, and let's make your next crowd pleaser together. Visit ztfstudio.com to book a conversation with Zach about your vision for your next project. ZTF Studio, where your sound feels at home. Now, back to our amazing guest.
So, you've been playing with all these bands, in the intro, I said you worked with Sam Giannis, and you're like a go-to supporting player in the Milwaukee music scene. So why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about your experience with the Milwaukee scene? You're a lot of positives, obviously you've experienced, but there's also probably things that are struggles out there. So kind of, if you can, touch on both sides of that coin.
Sure. Well, yeah, there's, the happy and the sad about everything, and that's what makes us who we are. And you remember when you're a kid, you walk into somebody's house and they have that picture with the two masks, the drama masks.
Right.
The sad face and the happy face. And I remember the first time as a kid, I thought, oh, that's weird. But now I understand exactly what that means.
Yep.
So I've had some really beautiful times with a lot of beautiful people. And of course, being human beings, it usually ends up in crashes and burns. For whatever reason, we crash and burn. But I like to take away the good part of it. And the thrilling highs that you get. I mean, the shivers. My God, what a ride,
Yeah.
We were on top of the world, and had we been in New York, we could have been the next. Everybody's like, you guys are the next Blondie, and I'm like, well, yeah, but we're in Milwaukee, where another famous producer said, yeah, you're safe in Milwaukee. Nothing gets out of here.
Yeah.
So here we were. And, I played with Sammy from the Bodines and Sam Giannis, and we did a record entitled A Good Day to Die, and it was pretty much like his initial departure from the Bodines, and he wanted to express himself and how the depth of his feelings with his brother's suicide, and it was really a heavy, heavy record, and we played some really cool gigs all around, and that was a nice high. The shivers were a great high. Color Radio, we were one of the bands that actually got a bona fide big-time record deal out of Milwaukee, and they flew us to Los Angeles. We recorded an album at the record plant. Rick Derringer was our producer. We were hanging out with rock stars, walking up and down the hall at the record plant, watching Tom Dowd mix the Santana album in one room, and, Rick
Wow.
Springfield playing video games with Rick Springfield in the other room, and we had made it, man.
Yeah.
Hollywood's a tough scene. Hollywood is a tough scene. You really gotta know what you're doing to ride that train. So, but it was a thrilling ride, and been there, done that. Sometimes I think I just wanted to make enough money to survive, but inevitably I always seem to get spit out at the end of the trail, And that's okay. That's okay. I learned a lot and had a good time. Of course, people fought. There were jealousies. There were, money issues. There were, professional issues. But again, that's always going to be a part of it.
Right. Right.
Glass half full.
Yes. Glass half full. That's a good way to look at it. I mean, there's always room to add more, right?
Yeah. Got to.
Of the experiences of, being signed to, a major record label and, getting to be able to experience that, what kind of like advice you would give to people that might actually get that opportunity in the future?
Rule number 1, don't quit your day job. Rule number 2 and rule number 3, repeat rule number 1.
Okay.
Well, no, okay, advice. Well, okay, there's a lot of practical advice. Boy, I mean, how do you teach a 20-year-old kid that just got a record deal, what to do?
Right.
Let's see. Don't hang out with bad people. Don't do drugs.
Go ahead.
I guess there's a lot of people that are focused on the business. I was more focused on the thrill ride and the feel I got from playing music with cool people. And I guess that's the big thrill. Some people treat it like a real business and a real cut and dry, and we're all different,
Right.
There's
right.
the group. There's the group people, and there's the academic people.
Yeah. Someday this ride will come to a screeching halt, and you better have somewhere to land. Otherwise, you're going to be hunting and punting for a little bit.
Yeah, it's you see it all the time, and there's so many people chasing it, and I always tell them, Okay, yeah, you asked for advice. Okay, number one, don't quit your day job. Number two, be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. And then what do you do with it? You know, we watched this drama unfold with Jane's Addiction on stage, right?
Yeah.
Barry Farrell punching, what's his name? And, you know, it's that culminates from many years of touring, and one guy, you know, hitting a bottle of wine before the show, and it goes with the territory. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I mean, you live it, baby. And somebody said making it is just like getting in a van with 6 smelly guys and traveling around the country for the rest of your life. So you got to be able to handle that.
Yeah.
That's a tough scene.
Mm-hmm.
But if you make it work, and keep a clear head and be healthy and eat right, I mean, you should see some of the restaurants we would come into the middle of the night in the middle of nowhere. I mean, they were basically microwaving gas station food and
Right.
calling it a restaurant. And you're supposed to be surviving on that. It's tough. You got to make it work, and you have to know what you're doing, and you have to prepare that if you get that far, you have to make it work to survive. Keep going.
Right. Well, now we are in the year of 2024 at the end of it, and your album at the time of this recording is coming out in a week and a half. So kind of give the listeners, you know, the journey from the start to next Friday, basically, on this new album.
Wow. Okay. So here I am, and I position myself, you know, all the way through in most of the bands, a couple of the bands I fronted, but most of the bands I just was trying to behave as a really good sideman, somebody who could bring the music, always showed up on time, was sober, had a good time, was nice to be around. Sometimes that didn't work. But back in the day, most of the people I was hanging with were really great songwriters and great singers. So I always had just to play guitar and sing background vocals, which always got me the job. Well, that's another piece of advice for the youngins. Learn how to sing background vocals. You'll always get a gig, because the lead singers will want you around to make them sound good.
Right.
So during those times, I was always writing songs, but I was never bringing them to the bands I was in, because there was always like a main songwriter, and it just was unnecessary for me to bring my songs. So over the years, I accumulated a number of really cool songs. And, you know, I'd write 3 songs for each band I was in. All of a sudden I find myself with 30 pretty neat songs. And here I am thinking, you know, and I had recorded some demos of these. And some of the songs you'll hear on this record are the original demos that I added drums to, or added background vocalists to, or had somebody come in and play harmonica on, like Little Rev came in and played harmonica on some of my stuff. And I re-recorded some of the older songs. So it crosses genres, and it's kind of indicative of all the different bands I was in. I'm really happy with the way it turned out. I mean, I almost can't believe I put this together, because I didn't believe that I could ever make it happen. And all of a sudden I'm like, you know, this has got to happen now, or I'll never do it. So it felt really good. And I'm really proud of it. And I haven't said that about a lot of stuff. This one I'm really proud of.
Yeah, I was listening to some of the tracks that Gary Tannen had sent to me in the media press release, and this stuff sounds really, really good, Jim. And congratulations on a well done album for sure.
Thank you, appreciate that.
So, how long did it take from concept to basically having it finished? I
want to say I went pretty quick. Once I decided to pull it off, there's 2 little words that echoed in my head that Gary Tannen had planted there years ago when I was working on a Peggy James album. I was producing an album for her.
Right.
And one of the words was commitment, and the other word was deadline. So those 2 words, I said, okay, I'm committing to doing my own record. Now I'm going to give myself a deadline. I'm just going to hammer this thing out. And it really made for, it's like being in training. You get in the studio and you just sit there for hours on end. And I never allowed myself that luxury for years. I was always too busy doing something else. So now here I am just really hammering out to the point where I don't even want to be sitting in this chair with this guitar, but I'm just going to keep going because I know something is going to happen that ain't going to happen if I don't do it that way.
Right.
And I really found some space, Zach, that I hadn't been in a long time. And man, it was like, I listened back, I'm like, whoa, that's me. It felt so cool.
Yeah, I've experienced that myself. I listened to like an album that I put out 20 years ago, and I can't believe I actually was able to play what I played on that album, because it's like I didn't think I was that good at the time, but then I kind of reflect back later and go, yeah, I was actually halfway decent when I put that stuff down. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting journey to be able to, think outside yourself a little bit once you get to reflect on the stuff that you've done.
Right. And it validates the depth that we have that we don't even know we have.
Yes, exactly.
But the downside is try playing that stuff over again after you played it that way.
Right, exactly. I think I remember hearing that when Jimi Hendrix did his albums, and then he had to go and learn everything that he played on the recordings before he went out and did the tours for the albums. And it's just like,
yeah, that's a big problem.
How did I do that? I don't know. Like I have to figure it out now.
Exactly.
So you have this great album coming out, like I said, in a week and a half from the recording of this interview. Now, you have some songs on here that I think you would really like to put on the podcast. Why don't you talk about a few of those, and then I can kind of weave them in and out of the podcast when I release the episode.
Okay. The opening track is kind of like the funky rockabilly hook, and it's actually an anti-war song. It's called 29 Women, and it speaks of, the chorus speaks of, I don't want to be your dog. I don't want to be a dog to anybody who's sending me off to war for their own purposes. And I do enjoy my freedom. My father was a vet, and I have great respect for the military, but at the same time, it breaks my heart that, during the Nam era, I lost my best friend's older brother stepped on a landmine, and that gave me a sour taste for, the government sending 18-year-old kids to get blown apart, So this song kind of reflects the anger and disgust and the unwillingness to go along with that. But I know we have to fight for our freedom, but it's a hard thing.
Yeah.
So 29
absolutely.
Women, I like that song a lot.
29 women and 29 men went to war and got shot dead. The people cried, we'll have no more of all this killing in your war. Now I'm standing in a stone fog, and I ain't gonna be your dog. No, I ain't gonna be your dog. 99 man, holding hands and making friends. When the full moon hides behind the sun, come on, baby, get your gun. Now we're standing in a stone fog, and I ain't gonna be your dog. No, I ain't gonna be your dog. And I don't wanna be your dog. And I ain't gonna be your dog.
Where I've been is kind of like the guy who, you know, another love just fell apart, and there he is in the cheap motel next to the truck stop, and, you know, he's lamenting the loss. And so I wrote that driving back from a gig in Eau Claire with a pencil and a piece of paper on the dashboard of my old Dodge van. So I'm kind of proud of that song because it's one of the first cool songs I wrote.
Stop lights, they shine so bright through my window on a motel night. A diesel cries into the dawn, with you left wondering where I've gone. The radio, could it be wrong with an old and worn out forgotten song? It seems so hard to understand this broken heart of a lonely man. Now I walk this world alone, and knowing you, girl, I have grown. Now I pick up my telephone to ring you up, but you're not home. The miles of wire that hang so sad, reminding me of a love gone bad. I'd love to hold you close and warm through the rain and black of tomorrow's storm. I'll hold a candle to the night, so you love I feel till the morning light. Even though miles apart, your love I hold within my
I like them all. What would be another one you'd play that would be neat? I Want to Be Your Man is kind of like a happy song about a guy who is professing his love to a woman. I got Little Rev playing harmonica on that. It's kind of like a two-beat country rockabilly song. I'm pretty proud of that because it's a electric guitar finger-picking song, and it goes by pretty good. And I'm surprised I even was able to play that one, but we're pretty happy with that one.
Excellent.
I'm happy with all of them. Pick one, Zach.
Okay. Who else is on this album?
I played in a really cool rock and blues band back in the day called the Shuffleaires with Big Al, who's out in Vegas now. And the drummer in that band is Billy Siebert. He plays with the Incorruptibles now, and he plays on 3 of the tracks on the record. He's a great Rolling Thunder rock drummer, and he plays on 29 Women and Down My Road, and there's another one he plays on. Gary Tannen plays keyboards. He did a wonderful job playing keyboards on my stuff, and I was reluctant because I'm a guitar geeko, so having a keyboardist coming over, I'm like, I don't know about that. But he completely convinced me with his great playing that that's what that record needed to be like more eloquent and world-class style. He did a marvelous job. My friend Rob Abel plays bass on it. He played in a power trio with me called Milk Train. He is no longer with us, so I wanted to honor his bass tracks, which I kept, and I was able to transfer into the recording. So he's on there posthumously. Who else on there? Peggy James sings background vocals, local singer-songwriter. Got a pretty voice.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I forgetting? No, I don't have the album in front of me, and I hope I'm not forgetting anybody important. Yeah.
So now Gary Tannen played keys on it. He probably did he was the recording engineer on this as well as the mastering engineer.
He was the mastering engineer. I
Okay.
was the recording engineer.
Okay, so that's right. You have like your own studio, right?
Yeah.
Now, is your studio just like your own private studio, or do you have that open to other people as well?
I recorded an album here with Little Rev. I kind of wanted to take him out of his folky vibe and give him more of a rockabilly edge. And we did some pretty cool experiments. And there was a couple songs on there where we really hit the mark, and a couple were like, maybe we should have left that like a folk song. But we did a record here, and I recorded some spiritual groups here, some church groups, but it's mainly my home studio that I've been assembling gear over the past 20 years. And so I finally got to the point where I could make it sound, as good as anything.
Yeah. Is that based in, you're in Milwaukee, or are you on?
I'm in the Milwaukee area.
So we've kind of talked about, your beginnings. We talked about this great album coming out on the 27th, the people that these great people that are on this album. What else do you want to talk about?
That's a big question, Zach. What do I want to talk about? Yeah, I want to talk about the future of young people and how they need to. And I know I came from a different era; things were different. But the other day, I'm driving down the freeway, and I actually saw this. There was a car on the side of the road with a flat tire, and there's 4 young people on the side of the road, each one on their cell phones. And nobody had the curiosity to pop the trunk and see if there's a spare or a jack in there, even if they knew what it was. Would they know how to use it? And I think about high schools. Back in the old days, they had shop classes. They taught kids how to make stuff, how to fix stuff, how to do stuff.
Right.
They had home economics class. Do they even have that stuff anymore? Teaching people how to cook and clean and do your laundry. I mean, basic skills.
Actually, the high school that I teach at has a top level auto shop, wood shop. They also have culinary classes, and there's also what they call, I think I'm going to get the title wrong, but basically show them how to live on their own. So they have like this apartment kind of set up in a classroom, and kind of show them, how to live by yourselves. And they're even now starting to teach them how to balance a budget. So at least the high school that I teach at are teaching life skills to these kids.
That is really encouraging, Zach. Because when I grew up, I kind of ran the streets. I grew up on 42nd and Capitol, and I just ran the streets and learned so much on my own from all the guys that I hung out with. The people I hung out with could do anything, and they taught me how to do so much more than I knew, and were willing to share it. And it was all hands-on, and I realized the technology has taken away a bit of that from folks. So I just hope that this country will survive and go back to some of that mentality instead of depending. The old cliche. Well, you're going to be screwed if the grid goes down.
Mm-hmm.
I just bought a book on edible plants.
Yeah.
Things like that. We have to know our surroundings from the ground up to truly survive. And I realize nobody lives forever, but we really should be doing that more. So that's my take on it.
So hopefully these upcoming generations will be able to, hopefully have the experience and the ability to learn, about, like we just said, these life skills, because you can't learn everything from a YouTube video. And sometimes that's just, a cold, what they call cold media. At least I was told that's called cold media. And sometimes you need that face-to-face, in-person learning experience.
Right. And don't we, years ago, you always talk to psychologists, psychiatrists who are some of my friends, and you read this, but the human being needs human contact. There is something, what's the word I'm looking for? There's something that is intangible that, whether it's a ceremonial reaction that goes through the air or it's a spiritual reaction, but we need human contact to really, manifest all that the human has. And I think it's important. There was a time when I wanted to start, just get an old building down in the hood and just have a place where people could go and just sip coffee and get up in front of a microphone. You have 5 minutes. And you can do or say whatever you want to say, but involve the entire audience. You can have a question and answer about any topic under the world. All you got to do is behave, but it would be such an engaging environment for people to go to and share. I'm sure that's going on in some places, but I always wanted to do that, but I thought, just to run it would drive me crazy, probably. But wouldn't that be fun? Just go there and do your thing for 5 minutes and then talk to people and hang out. And
yeah, I think so. I think that'd be actually a really cool, especially if you have maybe even multiple people that would just go up, just get a little taste of what you're about, and then, and then just network and just, learn from each other, kind of like I would think. I mean, obviously, at least I wasn't around back in like this, I wasn't of age in the 70s, but it kind of feels like that's kind of what it was kind of like in certain areas in that decade.
Yeah, 70s, 80s, and 90s. You can go into a club. Back then, if I wanted to start a band, like if I was between bands, I'm like, I got to go start a band. So I would go into basically any club, and there would be no fewer than 3 to 4 people in that club that were like, hey, you play drums with this guy. You want to come over tomorrow and we'll jam? Yeah. And,
right.
The next thing you know, you have a band. Where are you going to do that these days? You're going to go into a club where the music is so loud you can't even hear yourself think, and you're going to try to strike up a conversation with somebody. It may be the same, and maybe I just don't see it anymore. But of course, it was different.
Yeah, it's always a little different. So as I'm wrapping this up, if you could go talk to yourself and give yourself advice when you were in your 20s, what advice would you give yourself?
In my 20s?
Sure. Or you could pick any age.
Well, that's shining a light on all the boneheaded things I've done in my life that I regret. So we're not going to drag those out into the open right now. What would I do differently? Well, I wouldn't have thrown rocks at a car from the top of an office building at 8 years old and got my first ride in a police car at 8 years old.
Oh.
I probably wouldn't have done that one, Zach. That's where it kind of started.
Yeah.
My mom had this big wooden paddle. It must have been like 3 feet long, and it was solid oak. And somebody had routed or engraved on it the Board of Education. So I learned early on just to not do boneheaded things. What would I have done differently? Good question.
Is there anything musically that you might have done a little bit differently in your younger part of your life?
No, I wouldn't have changed a thing.
Okay.
Because we pretty much just ran the clubs and ran the streets, and I met people. It was a whirlwind of great musicians and cool people and exciting opportunities, and it never stopped. So I wouldn't change a thing. It was a great whirlwind.
Excellent. Nothing wrong with that. If you don't want to change anything, then, because if you change one thing, then it's kind of what I think they call the butterfly effect. Then it might change a whole bunch of different things after that.
No regrets.
That's right. No regrets.
No regrets.
Um, any last words before we sign off?
Wow. You're really opening the door here, Zach.
This is your soapbox, my friend.
Well, I just want to say to all the people that I've ever had the pleasure of playing, performing, recording music with, I really have enjoyed every moment, and perhaps my own actions or behavior weren't to the liking of some or all, but I just want you to know that I enjoyed every single moment of it, and I hope I didn't cause anybody too much pain or suffering. I sure had a good time.
Good. That's the way it should be. I have this sign that's in our house that I can't remember it verbatim, but basically it says, "Don't get out of this world as clean as possible. Leave it with a lot of bumps and bruises and a lot of good time."
Hey, amen, brother. That's awesome.
Where can people, like I said in the opening, they can go to record stores, they can go on eBay, but where else can they hear this album coming out on the 27th?
I think it's going to be available. Go to my Facebook page. I think Gary's going to be doing some promo, so he's going to enlighten the masses where they can go and download this thing. There's going to be a site. I have it on eBay right now. I've got the CD. I think the digital downloads will be on Spotify and another place. I'm going to hit the record stores this week and see if I can put the physical product in the stores. But if you have eBay, you can buy it for $15, and I'll ship it to you.
There you go. Are you going to be on Bandcamp at all with this?
Yeah, we're just entering into that. We're probably going to set up a site and have things for sale.
Excellent.
Yep.
Cool. And do you have any gigs coming up in the end of this year, early next year?
I'm talking to some people right now about putting together a band, and I've been sitting down and trying to learn all my parts of the record, which, it'd be ideal to have a 6-piece band, Zach, with all these masterful musicians playing all these lovely parts, but when you're just one guy, you're thinking, okay, could I go out and play a solo act, and would anybody care? So we'll see what happens. I'd love to have a band. I was always a live band guy. But a lot of the people that I used to play with, they're somewhere else right now. So it's hard to put it together. So I'm going to try.
There you go. And do you have a website, or are you guys going to plan on putting one up?
Yeah, we're going to get one up. It's all in the works right now.
Okay. So
most of the energy went to making the record. So now we got to do this too.
Right. And either you or Gary can probably send me that information, and then I can, depending on when this comes, I'm going to try my darnest to try to get this out as soon as possible. I do still have a couple episodes before this one to put out, but so it should be, hopefully you have that stuff up and running by the time this comes out. I'm thinking probably within the next 4 weeks.
Okay, that's fine. I'll have Gary get in touch with you. He said you guys are good friends, so I'm sure you are on his list to get all that info to.
Right, exactly. Well, Jim, this has been a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate you being on, taking your time to, talk to me, and for the listeners to, get to know you better and hear what's going on with you. And listeners, go and check out this phenomenal album. Once again, it's Just Desserts. It came out on September 27th. It's on eBay. It'll be on Bandcamp. It'll be on streaming sites. It will be everywhere as possible. So, Jim, thanks again for being on the Wisconsin Music Podcast.
Thank you for having me, Zach. It was a really good time. I appreciate your interest. I appreciate what you're doing, bro.
Well, thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the Wisconsin Music Podcast. Once again, I'm Zach Fell, your host and creator of the Wisconsin Music Podcast, where I love to amplify the great sounds coming out of the Wisconsin state. We have great talent here, great support, great listeners. Thanks to Fox Cities Indie Radio for syndicating this on Thursdays and Sundays, along with their other great programming. So make sure you check out the Fox Cities Indie Radio. Thank you so much to Jim Eanneli for being on the Wisconsin Music Podcast, talking about his great career, his great new album, Just Desserts, with all these great musicians from around Wisconsin. So make sure you go check that out and keep helping and supporting our great local music here in Wisconsin. For those of you who are new to our show, the Wisconsin Music Podcast is dedicated to showcasing the incredible talent of Wisconsin-based musicians and the thriving local music community. Our episodes drop every Tuesday on all streaming platforms and YouTube. Additionally, you can catch our episodes on Fox Cities Indie Radio every Thursday at 6 p.m. and Sunday at 3 p.m. If you'd like to be on the show, just go to wisconsinmusicpodcast.com, fill out the guest request form up at the top, ask for your email and your name, and then I'll send you an auto email asking you for more information. If you are enjoying these episodes, please consider donating to the Wisconsin Music Podcast. Donations help pay for the website and putting the podcast up on streaming services, and also getting our name out there to all Wisconsinites and others that are interested in our great music here in Wisconsin. Donations are secured through PayPal and Stripe. All you have to do is go to the website and click on Donate to WMP. You can also head over to our Instagram and Facebook pages and like us there. Leave some comments. Also go to the podcast review section of your podcast player and leave a 5-star review. Would be great. You can also head over to YouTube and watch the interviews and leave comments there as well. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you next time.